It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-400-8009. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Almost a decade I've been on this program giving you my opinion of the real estate market, helping you become informed about matters within our market so that you can be a prepared and informed consumer. When it comes time for you to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, you know what's going on in the market. You know the right questions to ask. You know how to hire the right agent to help you with whatever it is you want to accomplish. So appreciate you guys tuning in this morning. Man, we've got a lot to talk about, a lot of crazy things happening in our country right now. Globally, of course. And all this geopolitical uncertainty, how it's having an impact on the market. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's just happening here locally. I mean, we've got this unbelievable amount of demand in our market that is absolutely crushing the available inventory of homes for sale. If you're a buyer right now, man, my heart goes out to you. It is a tough market. So I'm going to give you some information today on how to prepare if you're a buyer. Now, there's only so much we can do. There are plenty of stories. I'm sure you've heard them. I'm sure your friends have experienced them. Maybe even you yourself, if you've been in the market recently or are in the market now, of folks that are moving to the area from different parts of the country that frankly have different perceptions of value as it relates to housing, that maybe have sold their home for a significant amount more than what they're going to spend on the home that they buy here, and are coming in with just kind of insane offers that the local everyday buyer that's reasonable just can't compete with. So we're going to talk about the market for a while. We're going to talk about if you're a buyer, you know, what can you do? Like, what really are the steps that you can take, and how can you position yourself to win in this market? Or do you just have to, you know, kind of lay down and just deal with what you get? I personally don't believe that. We're seeing even on our team, because I operate a successful real estate team. You know, we sell well over 100 homes a year. We've been in the top 1% of agents since 2009, and we've represented about $1 billion worth of real estate collectively, and we're obviously having some struggles on the buyer side, but we've positioned our buyers that frankly as best they can be, and we are winning. So I want to share some of those success stories and the how-to. Now on the seller side, kind of a completely different set of rules, right? So we're going to talk about that as well. But first of all, I'm in the studio today. So if you'd like to call in, if you've got some questions about this market, really want to better understand the process, really any generalized questions you have, specific questions, maybe you want to share a story, feel free to call into the studio. The number here is 843-556-1250, 843-556-1250. That's the number to be on the program. Now, if you'd like to reach out to me personally, you're thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, we have been telling folks that if we can't sell your home in 30 days or less, then we will sell it for free. So if you'd like more information on that incentive, that program, which is frankly very straightforward, then I invite you to either give me a call or text me at 843-400-8009. That's the way to reach me personally off air, 843-400-8009. Or you can always check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. A lot of great information on that website. listingsincharleston.com, more on my team and who we are, what we do, what we sell, how we sell it. You can find out how many buyers we have for your home and what it's worth should you be interested in selling your property. Of course, you can search the MLS, listen to, hundreds of versions of this radio show over the course of, like I've mentioned, almost 10 years. So a lot of great information, listingsincharleston.com. But let's get right into it. So I want to talk first about just market dynamics, and the first thing I want to chat about is the rise in interest rates that we've seen recently. I'm not sure if those of you that are not necessarily in the market have been monitoring it. Maybe you're planning on buying a home at some point here this spring, summer, fall. But we have seen a rise in interest rates. They're close to 4% now, sometimes even higher, depending upon factors like, the purchase price and credit score, debt to income ratio. There's several factors that kind of go into it. We're essentially a full percentage point higher than we were just 6 months ago. And several factors contribute to this, by the way, things like, economic growth and inflation and monetary policy. But the issues we're having with Russia and Ukraine, or geopolitical uncertainty, as they call it, has weakened the 10-year treasuries, which pushes mortgage rates down a little bit, which, by the way, if you look at where we are right now compared to like last week, they're down 0.03%. Now, they're expected to hold there a little while, but there have only been two kind of similar spikes in interest rates in recent history. One was immediately following the 2016 election, when rates jumped 85 basis points in about 10 weeks, or that's 0.85%. And the other was during the 2013 kind of tapering tantrum that we had, when rates surged a little over a full percentage point, 116 basis points in 11 weeks. And so, obviously, the higher cost of home ownership ultimately impacts a buyer's ability and interest in home buying. And that's something I want to stay at for just a moment. Interest in home buying. Of course, we have the affordability factor, and the affordability of homes has been steadily going down for, frankly, years now as prices have gone up. But now you couple that with an increase of a full percentage point in interest rates over the course of the past 6 months. And not only are buyers getting edged out of the market, but for those that remain in it, let's say that a buyer's been looking for the past 6 months, maybe not so seriously, but, if they find the right property, then they'll pull the trigger, they'll move. They might need to sell their home first, and that's a whole separate story, but let's just keep it simple for the sake of conversation. Let's say a buyer's been looking for the past 6 months or so. If the right home hits the market, they'll move. Well, the reality is this. When you look at the monthly mortgage payment on the typical U.S. home, it has risen 31% in the past year. We have a 31% increase in payments from January of last year until now. Now, think about what that does to the buyers that are in this market, especially those that have been looking, say, over the past 6 months. The caliber of home, the size of the home, the location that buyer is looking in, all of these things start to get watered down as affordability becomes more and more of an issue, more and more unattractive. Maybe instead of looking at a 2,400 square foot home with renovated kitchens and bathrooms and hardwood floors and so on and so forth, now you're looking at a home that's 2,200 square feet and you need to do some work to the kitchen and the bathrooms, or it doesn't have the features that same home would have had 6 months ago. Now, the question, of course, is, has the income of the borrower risen in line with the increase in payment? Well, if we're looking at a 31% increase in payment over the past year, pretty safe to say that the average everyday U.S. buyer has not seen a 31% increase in income. In January of last year, a buyer purchasing, the typical U.S. home, which at that point in time was $271,000 with a 20% down payment, which is a conforming loan, 30-year fix, so on and so forth. That payment was $885 a month. By this January, last month, not only had pricing increased over, or values of real estate increased over $50,000, because last month the average sales price was $325,000, but the interest rate shot up, which made that same payment 31% more at now $1,162 a month. It's actually even higher than the record we set in July of 2006, which at that point in time was $1,118 a month, which, by the way, if we're taking a little bit of a step back in time, you know what interest rates were back in 2006? 6.75%. Now we're complaining about 4%. I get it. It's a 1% increase. We're seeing massive appreciation. Very tough to keep up with things. But in the grand scheme of things, 4% is still a good interest rate. Now, higher borrowing costs will likely push buyers to seek out lower priced homes or just adjust or kind of settle on things like less upgrades or home size or features and so on. But the problem is there is hardly anything out there to purchase that remains on the market for more than a few days. You know, I just, as an example, and because we sell things in all different price ranges. We sell land all over the state, anything from $30,000 to multiple millions of dollars. Same thing with, residential real estate, starter homes up to, we just closed on a $5.3 million listing of ours 2 months ago. We've got a few others that are in the 5 million plus range that we have for sale, and everything in between. But the point is, the listings that are hitting the market, although plentiful, I mean, we're putting, let's be really clear here, we're putting a ton of real estate on the market every month. The challenge is demand is so incredibly high that we are absorbing that inventory faster than we are putting it on the market. Even when we're putting 2,000 homes a month on the market, which is massive compared to kind of where we are traditionally, we're still not catching up. So when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on specifically with demand, supply, and then how you as either a buyer or a seller really need to understand the rules of the game, how to play it, how to be prepared, and how to use this information to your advantage so that when you're buying a home or selling a home, you are positioned for success. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Remember, we're in the studio, so if you want to call in and ask your questions, the number here is 843-556-1250, or you can find more information on my real estate team and myself at listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Broadcast Saturday mornings at 9 and Sunday mornings at 10 on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA, the Big Talker.
Expert news and views on the Lowcountry real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in this market right now if you're a buyer. And I'll tell you, it's not easy. You've really got to prepare yourself if you're going to be a buyer in this market. And I want to just make sure that, you guys are aware that I'm in the studio today. I'm taking your calls. If you have questions, whatever you guys want to ask, anything real estate related, happy to take the call and be of help to you. Maybe there's someone out there that has a similar question, so they'd probably benefit from hearing from you. The number here in the studio is 843-556-1250, 843-556-1250. Now, if you're interested in hiring a real estate agent, I've been in the top 1% of agents since 2009. I've sold about $1 billion worth of real estate here locally. If we can't sell your home in 30 days or less, we'll sell it for free. So if you'd like more information on working with me, you can either call or text me at 843-400-8009. That's 400-8009, 400-8009. Or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. You can also send me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. So let's talk first about what has happened with inventory in this market. And some of these numbers, frankly, are going to shock you. So I'm a numbers guy. I love data. I follow the market very closely. Certainly is a necessity if I'm going to be on this radio show telling you what's going on in the market, right? Having this show over the course of the past almost decade has, of course, forced me to be a expert in this market. That comes through, of course, when we're representing clients and we're talking about how to strategize for success, whether it's buying, selling, or investing in real estate. And so I'm looking at some data and sharing it with my real estate team. I've got about 20 folks that are on my team that I employ. And we were looking at the history of available inventory, homes for sale in the Tri-County area. Now, a little caveat here, when we're looking at things like listings for sale in our local MLS, and I do this, we sell land all over the state. We do about, 30-ish new deals almost every month all over the state as it relates to land. It's a big part of our business. Of course, not the only part, but it's a very well-oiled machine on that side of our team's business. And so we're looking at listings in the MLS, and a lot of the listings that we have here locally are in areas that are an hour or 2 or 3 away from Charleston. They are not in the Tri-County area. You also have a lot of listings where it's just a vacant piece of land, and an agent has partnered up with a builder to say, well, hey, let's put a proposed construction listing up on the residential MLS. And I'm sure if you've looked around, if you've looked at real estate recently, you've seen schematics for a home to be built. Frankly, it's just a clever way for us to diversify the markets in which we market a property to and for when we're just selling land. If we can say, hey, on this property, this type of property would fit well. Here's how much it costs. We add that to the value of the lot. And now, boom, instead of just selling a piece of land, we've got a proposed construction listing we can sell as well with builder's contact information. You can pick and choose your options, so on and so forth. So let's just focus for a moment on just real homes, not proposed construction, in the Tri-County area, Charleston, Berkeley, Dorchester County. So let's go back in time 2 years. February of 2020, we had 3,709 single-family detached homes for sale, and we had a little over 1,088 condos and townhomes for sale. February of last year, we went down to 1,450 single-family homes for sale and 452 condos and townhomes. Guess where we were as of yesterday? 502 single-family homes for sale and 119 condos and townhomes for sale. Just a little over 600 total properties for you to buy and move into. Now, think about the insane amount of demand that we have in this market right now. We're putting more homes under contract than we are putting listings up for sale. It seems as though no matter how aggressively we're putting homes on the market, the rate by which we're putting homes on the market, the demand is exceeding it, which is why inventory continues to go down. I've never seen a market that has been more heavily slanted in favor of a seller. So it makes bidding wars with buyers from different markets with different perceptions of value very challenging. Let's say you live on James Island and you want to move to Mount Pleasant. You have a very clear understanding of the difference between the two markets. You understand, of course, that in most instances, Mount Pleasant is more expensive than James Island. You're prepared for that. And so you go out and you look at some homes, and let's say you're looking at homes that are priced at $600,000. The average sales price in Mount Pleasant's a little higher than that at this point. So we're looking at homes for $600,000. You find something you like. You think that, at least based on the review of comps, on paper, that house appears to be worth very close to what they're asking. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, that it's worth $600,000. So you make an offer, but you've got multiple other people that are looking at the property that have also made offers. And so now you're kind of asking yourself the question, well, how much higher do I have to go? How much higher should I go? What's appropriate before I just get into this territory where I'm just making a ridiculous and stupid financial decision? Yet you've got somebody from California or Virginia or Maryland or DC, we've got folks that are coming from the Northeast and from the West Coast that just have more expensive real estate, that have cashed out, they're ready to buy, and they're saying, all right, well, here, just give them $680. You as a local are like, what in the world? I can't believe somebody would pay that much for that house. The challenge is it's happening more and more. We've talked about this on this program, about how Charleston is a destination for people all over the country. If we're selling luxury real estate, like I was mentioning a little bit earlier, because we sell luxury real estate as well, those buyers most often are not from Charleston. They're from California. They're from the Northeast. I just sold a home to somebody from Germany. Their perception of real estate is considerably different than our local perception of value. And so you've got all these buyers out there that are just trying to figure out what's the sweet spot? How much do I offer somebody before I get into this territory where I'm just not making a smart decision? And once we get to a point in this market where people believe that prices will no longer go up at the rate by which they have been, i.e., a change in consumer confidence, that's when you're going to see this market really start to level out, or the pendulum will start to slowly swing the other way. If you think about, I always think about this, I think about the market as a pendulum. So on one side, you've got a buyer's market, one side, you've got a seller's market. Of course, right in the middle is a balanced market. There's no upward or downward pressure on supply. Demand pricing is in line with inflation. It's just a normal balanced market. Properties are going up a few percentage points a year, and that's it. Well, we've been so far to one side, being the seller's market, that as soon as consumer confidence changes, which could happen for a variety of reasons, or there's some sort of major shift in the market or economics, then you're going to start to see that pendulum slowly start to go back to a normal market. But I'm here to tell you, we have so much ground to go in order to get back to a balanced market that we're going to be here for a while. So the buyers that are out there saying, I'm just going to wait for prices to start to go down before I buy something, I think you're going to be waiting quite a while. And all the while, look at what's happening economically. Interest rates are going up. We mentioned this last segment. They've already gone up a full percentage point over the course of the past 6 months. Now, with everything that's going on right now, I think those interest rates are here to stay for a little while, maybe even come down just a little bit. But, we already knew the Federal Reserve was planning on, tapering off and kind of getting out of that game, so to speak, which was going to raise interest rates. Obviously, we've got inflation. That's a big problem. So how do you as a buyer prepare in a market like this? And let me just kind of give you an example. I put a property on the market on Thursday evening this week. And I'm here to tell you, this house needs work. It's a 3-bed, 2.5 bath, 1,900 square foot home. We listed it for $250,000. It hasn't been upgraded in 25 years. Carpet throughout that needs to be replaced. Wood trim, needs a new roof, new HVAC. The siding is rotting. The deck needs to be totally redone. Some of the windows need to be replaced. I mean, we're talking pretty significant work to this house. Significant work to this house. Yesterday, Friday, we had 29 showings. We got 6 offers. I put in the comments section that we are accepting offers through the weekend, and then by 12 o'clock Monday, we will have a decision on the one offer that we're going to go with. We had almost 30 showings our first day, 6 offers. We're not even at the weekend yet. Those were all the people that had the ability to take time off work and come and see the house. So we will 100% be 100 plus showings by the end of the weekend, and we're probably going to be in the 2+ dozen offer range, which is insane. And it's going to get bid up, and because of the number of offers that we have, buyers are going to make some tough decisions about how to increase the attractiveness of their offer. We've already got several cash offers that have waived the appraisal contingency. We don't have to worry about the whole mortgage side of things. Then what's next, or what's left? Obviously, people that are looking at the house see how much work it needs. It behooves that buyer to do an inspection. I certainly would want to if I'm looking at it, if it's not an investment for me. We've already gotten some offers where they've waived the inspection. It's as is. So how do you as a buyer compete with that? How do you prepare for that? I think, first of all, you have to understand that you're not going to win everything, right? There are going to be some homes that you just have to bow out of. You think about going to like an auction and you see something and you're like, wow, I'd love to have that. And you start bidding, and first it's, all right, well, I hope it sells for this amount. This would be a great deal. And then it keeps going higher and you're like, it's starting to get a little uncomfortable, but I really want it. And then it gets to the point where people are starting to fight over themselves and you're like, no, I'm out. This is getting silly. That's how most transactions are happening right now. That's how most buyers are feeling right now. And it's up to the one person to say, you know what? Here, offer them this. I dare them to not take this one. I bet you they take this thing and run to the bank with it. That's the frame of mind that a lot of buyers are in. So you have, obviously, as a seller, you want to capitalize on that. But as a buyer, you need to understand how to play the game. And I'm going to say something before I take a break and get into the real specifics of how to do this. And this is the reality. As inventory continues to go down, and as new agents in this market continue to go up, we've got 8,000 agents in this market. Only 5,400 of them did a transaction last year. And the overwhelming majority of them did less than 10 deals in the entire year. So it's basically a lot of folks that they probably have another job, or this isn't their primary source of income. And, they just want to help out some friends and family and so on and so forth. And that's all well and good. Here's the challenge. Their lack of knowledge and availability can cost you some serious money and heartache. And I'm just here to tell you, just based on that one example I gave you of the property we put on the market, some of these offers that I'm getting, the agents should be, they need more training. I'll put it that way. That's a nice way of putting it. Some of these contracts are just ridiculous. They know. I mean, I got two calls yesterday, actually, from buyer agents saying, hey, we had an approved appointment. There's like 6 people in the front yard waiting to get into this house. That's not a great sign if you're a buyer. As a seller, that is the best thing in the world. We can talk all day long about all these fantastic marketing strategies. You know what the best marketing in the world is? When you can create a situation where a buyer shows up to a house that they potentially want to buy, and they've got to wait for a few other people to go and see it first. And then when they come out after they're done, they've got a few more people waiting on them. That's some of the best marketing you can do. Now, there's a strategy involved with creating that, but marketing in its simplest form should create urgency. If I don't do something about this house right now, somebody else is going to. And so, these part-time agents or agents that just don't frankly understand the market, the dynamics within it, some of the tricks that they can do to increase the likelihood of your offer being accepted is one part. The completely other side of it is working with somebody that has access to properties for you to look at before they hit the market, before the feeding frenzy begins. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. But give us a call. We're in the studio. We're live, 843-556-1250, 843-556-1250. Ask me your questions. We'd love to hear from you. Or if you want to reach out to me personally off air, 843-400-8009, 843-400-8009, or listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I always like to take a little bit of time and just let you guys know that I appreciate you tuning into the program and relying on the information within it to help shape your understanding of our market here locally, what's happening with housing, and ultimately preparing you for the road ahead. If you plan on buying, selling, or investing, this is the show to listen to. This is where to go for that kind of information. And of course, if you want to reach out to me personally and have a conversation, it's never too early to start that conversation. In fact, I would behoove you to call sooner rather than later so that we can put a plan together for that inevitable move. The more time we have to prepare, frankly, the easier and better the process is. So if you're thinking about making a move, or if you just have some general knowledge questions, anything that I can do to help, feel free to give me a call, 843-400-8009, That's my personal cell, 843-400-8009. Or you can go to our website, listingsincharleston.com, listingsincharleston.com. Now, we are still in the studio. The number here, if you'd like to call in and be on the program, is 843-556-1250. That's 843-556-1250. And we did have a caller during the commercial break that would like for me to address the traffic concerns in Charleston and what that's doing to buyer demand, either moving in and that wasn't necessarily, I guess, discussed in the phone call, but I think it actually has a bigger thing to do with people that are deciding to leave rather than come here in the first place. I think that, it's all a matter of what they're used to. If somebody is moving here from the Northeast or from the West Coast, traffic here is a joke compared to there. So they're not that concerned about the number of cars they see on the highway in relation to whatever it is they're used to. But I think a lot of folks that have lived here for a long time, and I know it because, gosh, a lot of homes that we've sold over the past few years are folks that have lived here for a long time that might even be, born and raised Charlestonians that have said, this is just not the Charleston that we love. It has changed too much. So we're going to go to, a lot of folks are moving to the upstate. And frankly, it's not much better up there with everybody moving up there, or at least it won't be. Give it a little bit of time. But yeah, traffic, of course, it's a concern. But hey, Charleston's a pretty awesome place to live, and we've just got more people that are enjoying that now. But I do want to get back to our discussion on buyers and really what you need to know and what you need to do in order to be prepared to compete in this market. Because let's be real, let's call it what it is. You're about to get into like a fight, right? So you got to train, right? If you want to win the fight, you got to train. We've got to be prepared to win the fight. So I'm going to give you some things to take away in this program here, some actionable items if you're a buyer. Some of it's just things to know. The first and foremost, you've really got to be working with a responsive and knowledgeable agent, preferably one with a big database and the ability to find you what you want. So let me expand on that just a little bit. First of all, any agent out there, it's kind of like the oldest, not necessarily oldest, but the easiest thing for an agent to do is when they're having a conversation with a buyer, ask some of those qualifying questions. Tell me what you're looking for: bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, price range, location, features, so on and so forth. And then they say, and this is what, God, I would 99% of agents do this. They would say, great, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to construct a search in the MLS so that each time a new property hits the market, you're going to receive an email. Now, if you see something you like, let me know, and we'll go and we'll show it to you. It takes them about 5 minutes to create the search, and then they're purely just passing the buck over to you. Now you're responsible for saying, hey, I like this property. When can I go and see it? The challenge with that is I personally think that agent is not doing their job if they're just setting you up on some sort of set it and forget it search in the MLS. A really good agent out there really needs to be prepared and be looking at the listings just like the buyer should be. And sometimes, the buyer might feel that, hey, we're being this pushy real estate agent by saying, hey, this new listing hit the market. Let's go and see it now. We're not trying to be pushy. We're just trying to approach the process with urgency, because we know that if we're not one of the first through the door, that home is more than likely going to be gone, right? They're going to get offers. Now you're in a multiple offer situation. So not only working with somebody that's responsive and available, but somebody that honestly has the ability to find you properties before they hit the market is the real trick. Now, you as a buyer also need to be realistic about the process. That comes in the form of education from the agent you're working with to help you understand really what's going on in the market right now. There's got to be some preparation there. So I tell you what, I'm going to take a pause for a second. We're going to go to Helen in James Island, and we're going to talk about her question. Helen, how are you this morning?
Oh, I'm well, thank you. I wanted to know, the sound cut out there for a minute. I don't know the last thing you just said, but I had a question. 526 extension or completion. Can you remind us what the timeline is for that? And I wanted to know which neighborhoods you think it will impact positively and negatively, and why.
I'd have to look back at the dates surrounding the 526 extension. It's been a little while since I've looked at that. But have you tried driving to James or Johns Island recently? It's a nightmare.
Yeah, that's a factor. And then so many developments on Johns Island, but River Road is absolutely dangerous. I actually called the DOT about it, and I said, that the side of the road is crumbling into the ditch, and there, it's always like a runaround, and I said, look, I'm reporting this as a good citizen. There's issues with the River Road. It's a very heavily used road. I had a cousin that lived on Johns Island, and she moved to Florida because of the situation there. Anyway, your comments on any of these traffic flow problems for affecting neighborhoods would be appreciated.
Certainly. I appreciate the call, Helen. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. So the reality is, if we look at new construction, just development of different areas of Charleston, for the past several years, Johns Island has led the pack in new construction. It's where a ton of new developments have gone. And now, of course, as a result, we've got a bunch of people that live there that have created massive bottlenecks in the one of two ways to get to Johns Island. So this extension of 526, when it will be, I don't know. I'd have to look back and see. It's one of those things where I moved to Charleston 20 years ago, and they were talking about it back then. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind until I get reminded to look back into it. But gosh, the traffic, yeah, absolutely right, Helen, is kind of nightmarish on Johns Island, especially during peak travel times. As it relates to the impact of neighborhoods, depends on where the 526 extension will be, but that's going to be a nice boost for Johns Island when that happens. We'll see. I'll look more into that, and Helen, I've got your number. I'll give you a call. But I want to get back to some of these tips that you as a buyer really need to understand if you're going to be in this type of market right now. And if we've got enough time, I'm going to take a quick break for commercials. And when we come back, if I've got enough time, I'll give you some cliff notes on if you're a seller, how to play the game too. But I really do want to focus on the buyer side of the conversation here in the next few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Remember, if you want to call into the studio with about 10 minutes left, 843-556-1250, 556-1250. Or if you want to reach out to me personally, 843-400-8009, 400-8009, or listingsincharleston.com. Stick around for the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 9 and each Sunday morning at 10 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
1250 WTMA, the Big Talker.
You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. With just a few minutes left, we're going to go back to the phones and we're going to talk to Robert on Johns Island. Robert, how are you this morning?
Hey, good morning, Brian. I just wanted to ask you about recent reports about the Charleston County Register of Deeds office. If you can kind of break that down for us, just how it impacts your business or how it's impacting real estate in the market, I'd appreciate it.
With the amount of vacation days that have been taken and the backlog that's been created, yeah. The reality is...
Kind of break that down and how it really affects the agents and the market in Charleston County. Thank
sure.
you.
Well, and that's a great question. I appreciate that. When we're looking at, let's say that we're representing a buyer, and it's a seller that's in distress, right? Not every person out there is sitting on massive loads of equity and, has the choice as to when they move and for how much they get over the fair market value. I mean, some people need to go now. They need to sell. They're in distress. But even those that are not, some of the big challenges that we're facing right now, kind of logistically, are number one, that closing attorneys are as busy as everybody else. I mean, everybody's busy. The closing attorneys, the appraisers, the agents, the lenders, the inspectors, the contractors. I mean, all of them. And so part of the bottleneck, if we want to facilitate a quick closing, if somebody's got to sell now, it's very challenging to do, especially in Charleston County when we've got a Register of Deeds office that they got to fix whatever's going on over there. They've got to get caught up. It's an unnecessary bottleneck to getting deals recorded. Obviously, title searches are taking longer and longer. So it hasn't had a massive impact, quite frankly, on our business. But the struggle is real. I would say that the struggle is real across the board. That's one piece of it. But if we're looking at, the difference between getting something closed and funded versus being recorded, when the keys change hands and when the money gets deposited into the seller's account from a sale, then the buyer takes possession. But the recording of it can sometimes cause issues, concerns. So it's a good question, Robert. I really hope they get things squared away over there. It sounds like there might need to be a little bit of a change in who's taking care of all that. But that's a great question. It's created some problems, frankly, but nothing we can't handle, I'd say, because we've got enough time to deal with it. The typical closing process is around 45 days, so that usually gives us 6-7 weeks to plan for title searches to get done, and then ultimately for closings to get performed, and then deeds recorded. With the last few minutes, let's go over to Ed in West Ashley. Ed, how are you this morning?
Just fine, thank you. Just a question. My wife and I were in our 70s, and my wife is very seriously physically disabled. Right now, of course, we're in a house that's not all that disabled friendly or handicap friendly, and we're wondering, in the next few years, we might want to see if we could buy a house that's, specifically designed to make it easy for physically handicapped folks to get around in. It would have to have no steps, one floor, large bathroom and bath and all that stuff, and a kitchen that's very, very adaptable, and also wide doors and maybe even some automatically opening doors. But anyway, the kicker is this, though: are there construction companies or that could make a house like that, could build a house like that, and yet still make it attractive to a younger buying, clientele? In other words,
you mean for resale?
Yeah, for resale. Let's say if we meet our maker, whoever, and maybe our son, who's in his 30s now, would be maybe in his 50s then. I mean, he probably doesn't want to live in a house that looks like, was this designed for your 90-year-old parents?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Well, yeah, Ed, let me answer that with about a minute or so left in the show. There are areas that already exist, like the Elms or Del Webb, retirement-based communities that are single-story on slabs that are designed for that specific purpose. Certainly, a builder could create that. You're going to be challenged in doing that in most of Charleston County based on flood insurance and the elevation requirements because of those flood zones, which means you're going to have to go kind of to the outskirts of Charleston, Berkeley, Dorchester County. But those options certainly exist. And would that be attractive to a buyer in their 30s? Well, yeah, potentially. It depends on the buyer, what they're looking for, their criteria, so on and so forth. I certainly don't think a home on a slab that is, say, wheelchair accessible and handicap accessible or friendly would be unattractive. I think that probably wouldn't even enter into their mind. But options like that do exist. There are plenty of them in and around the Charleston area. And of course, we could find a builder that could construct something like that for you. But that's a great question, Ed. And, I'll reach out to you after the show and we can connect more about that. We're out of time, unfortunately, so if you're a buyer or a seller in this market, you want more information, we'll sell your home in 30 days or less, or we'll sell it for free. And if you're a buyer, then connect with me. Let me try and find you some inventory that's not on the market, that's already been attacked by a bunch of piranhas. Reach out to me at 400-8009, or listingsincharleston.com. You guys enjoy your weekend. Thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009.